Scripture says, He has told you, O man, what is right. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindly, and to walk humbly before the Lord? That is Micah chapter 6, verse 8. This morning, gang, we took a look at Micah, which was these revolving oracles of judgment against Israel and Judah, followed by great songs of hope, where God is going to take a remnant of the people. A remnant, we've learned, a smaller, faithful portion. The larger left to destruction, left in exile, but those who remain faithful. It is through this small group that inherit the promises first given to Adam and Eve with the proto-evangel of the seed that is going to crush serpent, the evil one, and his offspring, the devil, and then given through Abraham of a new family, which would bear the Messiah, that they would. The offspring of Eve that would crush the serpent is going to come through Abraham's line in this small remnant. The small remnant after the Assyrian exile, after the Babylonian conquest, this small remnant would receive all of those promises. And God is going to take that remnant, and he says through Micah, he's going to change them and shape them, and he's going to mold them. And he's going to do it in a way where they reflect his glory, his character, his nature to all the world. His family will be rebuilt and recreated. And in that, they will trust God for what is right. Not like the judges where they look to their own eyes. Not like Adam and Eve who took the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. They will trust God for what is right. And Micah says, you know what's right. What God has declared as right is this famous phrase, this very famous passage that you do justice. We've spent weeks talking about justice, right? The idea that you do the right thing. You do not what you can or what you're able or allowed to do, but you're always doing the right and the fair thing to care about humanity and life, about God's reputation. That's what justice is. And then that second one. Now, your translations, if you're in your small group right now or in your home, grab a couple different Bibles. Because we struggle with this second part. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice? A lot of folks, their translations are going to say to love mercy. The ESV says to love kindness. But if you note, there's this little note there. And at the very bottom of your page, it says, or steadfast love. It's because this word in Hebrew, chesed, is a word that we struggle to find English words that carry the depth of its meaning. Yes, it's a word that we often translate as mercy. But it's deeper than that. It's a word that when it's used to speak of the character of God, it's the word that we get steadfast love, that phrase from. And so the idea is to do justice and to love steadfastly, to love with a loyal love. When we look at it with God, and you talk about God's steadfast love, we're going to look at some passages in your study guide today. But one of the things we note that it's the kind of love that covers a multitude of sins. That God's chesed love, his steadfast, loyal love of us, is a love that overcomes our brokenness. It's a love that overcomes our rebellion. It's a love that remains steadfast and loyal even when we are wayfaring wanderers. His chesed love to us is merciful because we don't return it. And so that's where we get to do mercy. And what God is saying is, look, my people, when I fix them and they're right, and they reflect who I am to the world, they're going to show this loyal love that loves beyond brokenness, that loves beyond sin, that loves loyally as a gift to the recipient. So to do justice, to love loyally and mercifully. And the last one is to walk humbly before your God. Now, gang, I am going to straight plagiarize this from a guy named R.C. Sproul. He has a teaching series called Dust to Glory, and when he goes over this passage in Micah, I think he does a great job. Because what does it mean to walk humbly with your Lord? And what R.C. shares in this, that it has been pivotal in my life, he says, imagine that you're always before the face of God. And think about that, right? I mean, we are, aren't we? God, who is all-knowing, all-present, we're always before the face of God. He is always seeing and watching and observing and knowing what we're doing. There is never a moment where we call time out, go in a closet and hide, and we can say and do whatever we want, and God doesn't see it. We are always before the face of God, but rarely do we remember that we are before the face of God. And so to walk humbly with your Lord is that constant acknowledgement that I am walking before the presence of God in my actions, in my words, and my thoughts. I am doing them before the face of the holy, the almighty, the powerful one, the only true God. That has to bring humility to our lives. And to walk humbly with your Lord is to acknowledge that you are always walking before the very face of God, before the presence of God. And you're doing it remembering that who God is and our brokenness, and that I must always walk one trusting him, that I must always walk allowing him to be the one who is in charge, that I must always walk fully acknowledging my brokenness and my need for his strength, not my own. That as I walk humbly with the Lord, I am seeing myself just before the very feet of God, walking and trying as best as I can to reflect who he is, like Moses. That because I am in front of his face, that when others look at my face, that they would see the reflection, that they would see the residue of the glory of God in me and us. And so that's what Mike is talking about when he says, listen, I have to let you go to destruction, but I am going to rebuild. God says, I am going to rebuild this remnant. I'm going to take them back to Jerusalem, and someday there'll be a new Jerusalem and a messianic king. And we know it's going to be Jesus, and we know about eternity. He says, but when I do, and when I know that everything's going right, what we're going to see is we're going to see a people who acknowledges that God is right. And then what the Lord requires is for us to do justice, to love kindly, and to walk humbly with the Lord. Enjoy the text.